Welcome to Lockbox, a podcast providing real estate professionals with action items for success. My name is Jeffrey Brogger, and I'm going to be your host. I'm the founder of two real estate marketing and tech companies, STEEZY.Digital and realnurture.io. In this podcast, you'll learn from top 1% real estate and mortgage brokers the exact secrets to their success. Welcome to Lockbox. Welcome to Lockbox. My name is Jeffrey Brogger, and I'm here today with Dom Santaniello. Dom, thanks for being with us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So why don't you tell our listeners who you are and where you're from?
Sure. So I'm 28 years old. I'm from Western Massachusetts, which is the part of the state no one's talking about. If you're, across the U.S., you might just know Boston, and we're about 90 minutes west of there. My claim to fame is engineering an exit strategy from corporate America. I worked as a gas pipeline engineer for 7 years in parallel to getting a real estate license, building a rental property portfolio, ultimately scaling real estate brokerage, and then now a fix and flip business. So excited to talk about how I did that and want to just give back to people who are just starting to take action and give them a little inspiration that it is possible to do with a plan.
Awesome. I love that. So many out there want to escape the day-to-day. So many have heard about the real estate investment opportunity. Some even have an investment property or maybe two. But, you talked about, bridging the gap to then really letting it replace your full-time and running it like a true operation. And, that's something that you've been able to do, which is awesome. I'm curious, you mentioned going from corporate America, from an engineering background into real estate. But what was that first exposure to real estate? Like what really got you into it?
So my aunt happened to be a real estate broker in the area, and I ended up just getting a license, looking to make some side income and pay off my student loans. So back when I originally did that, I would have never, ever guessed that I'd be sitting here today. I literally just figured it was an easy way to do that, make some money on the side, help friends and family out, and then it quickly kind of parlayed into, me meeting some key mentors and market participants who were inspiring because, at the time I was 23, 24, and they were, in their mid 30s. And it was just unbelievable to see what they've accomplished. And it just kind of set me on that path.
Awesome. Yeah, you put yourself into the real estate realm and started to just kind of catch the bug. You saw the transaction volume of some other guys and what they'd accomplished at a young age and the possibilities with investment. So, from a sales perspective, it's pretty easy to see the value in real estate and then get into the investment side. But with that being said, doing fix and flips, taking the risk yourself, valuing properties, finding off-market properties, it lends itself to an entirely different aspect of the industry that has its own niche in and of itself. So, when you made the transition from, kind of doing sales and paying off your student loans to then doing investments, like how did you learn? Like what resources were you using to learn how to do things from scratch?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say being, type A, I guess, educated person, going through college and MBA and all that stuff, I always start with just the research phase. So was heavy into books, reading, podcasts, all that stuff. And really what sparked it was, I wanted to get a duplex and live in it literally just so I could live for free and take that mortgage payment and pay at my student loans. That was at the time, all I wanted to achieve at it. I've been listening to everyone saying you don't want to deal with tenants and unclogged toilets. So was a little nervous about the decision, but was just driven by, the numbers at that time. And once I got that first property and fixed it up and, was always handy working with my hands and that sort of thing, and finished that first project and move in, that's when I really saw the value. I mean, I went from, instead of having a $1,500 a month, mortgage in a single family to living for free, for $100 a month, and then having the paper tax depreciation and other, benefits to offset W-2. So once I went through my first tax season of owning one rental property, it sent me down the rabbit hole and I've yet to come out. So
yeah, absolutely. That makes total sense. And that first duplex, you're obsessed to just get that first duplex and make it happen. So that's an awesome story. And now, you're doing, like you said, 20 flips a year. And also, I'm sure there's some buy and hold in there as well. So, nowadays, how are you sourcing deals?
Yeah, so that's actually a tough one to answer just because literally real time we're trying to figure out where they're all coming from. So we've built an amazing brand. We have referrals coming. I mean, we're doing all the standard lead generation practices. So we're doing some digital marketing, mailers, TV commercial, billboards, all that sort of stuff. And, we're just getting calls left and right and just trying to figure out, 80-20 where the investment is really paying off. It just this year seems to have been coming from, everywhere. And now we're just kind of spending a lot, it feels like. So in the process of kind of figuring out what the most effective way is. And I mean, in the business, I'm sure you've been on the other side of it where it just comes in waves and it's just like, it could be dry and you're spending money and you feel like nothing's going on. And then all of a sudden it's like we literally aren't even sleeping because there's just deals coming in and projects closing. And it's just like, feels like shooting from the hip a little bit sometimes.
Yeah, it is interesting how that happens and it does come in waves. So, now you have a team, you're doing 20 flips a year and, you have an office there on the west side of Massachusetts. I find it interesting that the west side of the East Coast is away from the beach because I always grew up on the West Coast. And it's purely logical. Obviously, it makes complete sense. But whenever you say the west side, I always, in my mind, think more expensive because that's closer to the beach. Like that's like my conditioning being from Southern California. It's like every block you get closer, it's like at $100,000 at least. So that's interesting. You mentioned the less known part of Massachusetts from the west side.
Yeah, we're a good hour and a half from hitting the sand and the beach for sure. And definitely when you get to a certain point, it is $100K per block, as you approach that shoreline for sure.
For sure. So sourcing deals, you have a lot of different marketing going on. Is there one in particular that you found to be most profitable? I know you mentioned you're kind of in the thick of figuring that out right now, but is something sticking out to you and it kind of seems in your gut like it seems like this one's generating actual deals? Is there any one thing?
Yeah, believe it or not, referrals, which is a tough one.
Of course.
You buy referrals, right? So, I mean, my business partner, Luke, and I have just put an absolute, press on networking with, agents and brokers and resources. And we kind of realized like in the marketing thing, right? Like everyone's reading the books, everyone's on the podcast, everyone's buying the same list, everyone's hitting the same stuff. And we're thinking, I mean, you look at all of the agents like in our area, there's hundreds of them. I mean, all those people could be deal finders, right? And it's like, how do you make yourself known as a great cash buyer, easy to deal with, takes care of everyone, doesn't heckle and gets the deal done. And, for being younger guys in the space, we've definitely like right away just kind of stuck to our word, close, we've actually never defaulted on a deal. So every deal we've put under agreement, like, if we're looking for a buyer or whatever, like we always close. And that's been like our thing since day one. So, just being reputable, trustworthy, transparent, and then making a ton of noise on social media has really just been bringing people, agents that want to join our brokerage because they want to be part of, the investing stuff has been one thing. And then a lot of those agents are getting in, to the wholesale game and other stuff like that. And us being like kind of their mentors or the first contact in the business, we're getting like kick up deals basically from them. So to answer your question, really just referrals and branding has been a big thing and people are just coming out of the woodwork. I mean, we've literally gotten DMs with people like, hey, this house looks like a good one. And then we've closed on it. So I think it's just brand and marketing awareness has been like the number one. And obviously, I mean, we've gotten them from all angles, just from every aspect. But lately, it seems like the phone's ringing with real people that have real deals, which has been amazing.
Awesome. Yeah. And that's due to momentum, but also being a man of your word and having that theme go throughout your entire brokerage, right? When you're doing deals, I feel like if you put enough energy out there, you'll get a couple chances.
Right.
But if you burn those opportunities and you exaggerate and you don't close and you do think you're just always going to have to be generating new, you'll never have that consistent relationship with all of these partners that you could have had that you burned. Right. So, that I think, you breezed over it, but that's so key. It's just, being a man of your word, picking up the phone, like making it happen. That's super important. So what advice would you
do, right? It's just a cliche thing. And we've heard it so many times, but like we're doing it now and it's every day. I'm like, wow, it's simple stuff. It's simple.
No, it is. And I was listening to Jim Rohn this morning and he talks about, hey, telling the truth, right? Like being responsible and not exaggerating. And one thing that he said is that when you exaggerate one time, for the rest of the relationship with that person, they will never fully take you for your word. And that's, what a crushing blow, for the rest of the relationship with that person to not actually be, respected at the level that you could have been from one exaggeration. So yeah, all those little things, they really do add up. So great to hear that you're, doing some honest business out there, and it's obviously then having the ripple effect in the marketplace and showing, returning success to you. I'm curious what advice you would give to the mom and pop investor that has like one property, maybe two, and they want to scale it up to 10 or 20 and really have this full-time replace their income, but not all of a sudden have tons of worry and liability and, trash and toilets and all this stuff. Like, how do you grow from 2 to 20? Like, what does that look like to, and let's go buy and hold. Let's stay away from the flips for a second.
Yeah, that's such an interesting question. And I literally answer it every day because like all our agents and, our friends and family now, I mean, a lot of people are starting to pick up properties, one or two. And then you kind of like, you're going 20, 25% down, on one or two, and it's pretty easy to lose momentum. I mean, it doesn't matter who you are, just, you can run out of money if you have $1 million and you're buying a couple 7-figure deals, retail, and then your sidelines. So how I did it was, really at first what held me back was like paralysis by analysis. Like I was walking on deals over like decimal points on a cap rate on a 2-family, which is actually hilarious now that we say it, but just getting momentum at first is number one. And even if the deal's not perfect, like you need to learn how to lease up properties. You need to learn like who you can call to fix stuff. And the number one thing I tell people is don't do it yourself. Like made all the mistakes of, write a passage, you do 1 or 2, but right now, the only way we're able to scale businesses is by leveraging resource. I mean, it's amazing in your community, in your family, in your friend circle. There's people sitting around with hundreds of thousands of dollars in the bank doing nothing, that if you can come to them with a sound plan and say, hey, I can give you X return, this is my plan, and then we're going to refi, like kind of like burying or, whatever. Mm-hmm. That's what changed everything, because obviously starting out, you get a freebie with your owner occupied deal. And then you're kind of scratching your head like, all right, now I got to get 25%.
Now what?
COVID, and banks are tightening up, and the LTVs are worse. The rates are a little less favorable. Seasoning, reserves, all those trigger words are stuff that holds people back. So I would say just like understand your network, understand your resources, make a plan and just go one at a time. Like if you have 2 units and you want to get to another 2-family, you don't need to be looking at 100 deals. Just pick exactly one thing you're trying to do and just don't stop until you do it. And that's pretty much what I did. Just one by one, obsessed. And then you get it and you move on to the next. So you take a step back and you're like, things are starting to move.
Yeah, it's good advice. And especially about being resourceful. Tony Robbins talks about you never have a lack of resources. It's always a lack of resourcefulness.
Yep.
And if you can just be resourceful and obsess over something and go as hard as you can until, then you'll get it. And, I think it's important to really write down what's in your mind onto paper and then chunk it to one thing, and all systems go on that one thing. The whole team, everybody just, hey, this is the thing. And once that's accomplished, now what's next, right? So key. And really this podcast is about the action items for success from top real estate professionals. So is there a single most important action item that you've taken on a daily basis that has attributed most to your success?
Yeah, I actually love that whole like slogan for this podcast, and I resonate with that a lot, because the difference between like, my business partner and I and a lot of the people that we're surrounded by are just inconsistency in action. And I forget where I heard this. It was like a gym reference, right? But like, I can give you my workout plan and you can do it one time. And I mean, it's the same thing as the gym, right? Like you can literally go 1 or 2 times and look in the mirror and not see a change. But until you do it consistently every day, like clockwork, then you're going to start to see something. And it's even harder in business because you're waiting for the money to come in. And I even to this day, I mean, there's certain things where it's just like, you kind of feel like, what am I doing? I've been posting for months and nothing's happened, or I've been, mailing for months and the phone's not ringing. And then all of a sudden it's just consistency, and then things start to happen. So consistent action, and then obviously just being planned. So one thing that is still something we struggle with is there's a million things going on, right? Like we're scaling a real estate brokerage, or scaling a fix and flip business. We're burning properties. We're outsourcing property management. And there's like, you know, how many functional hours in a day. So like every day I sit down, you know, we have all the apps, but I just write it out by hand, just 10 things I have to do today, and always focus on one goal. And that's been it's been doing it for 3 to 5 years right now. And I still do it and it still works. So.
Interesting. So is that at the beginning of the day, in the morning?
First thing in the morning.
You write down 10 things that you are going to focus on or accomplish that day.
Like have to do them. Like just, it could even be something simple. Like I got to go to the post office, but like I just make my action list. And then the other thing, which we didn't really talk about, is like goal setting. So like since I've been 21 years old, always have like goals just taped to my wall, as cliche as it is, but it's kind of unbelievable when you start to look back and look at everything that's been crossed off, like, you know, silly personal goals to, you know, real business goals. And I think there really is some sort of psychological thing that happens when every day you look at that thing and then you're writing your list out, and it's always in like, that's the first thing I'm thinking of, like, how do I get to that unit count, or how do I get to, you know, X net worth or whatever it is. And it's literally just in your brain 24/7. And then you pair that with taking action and you're literally on the path to success.
Right. Success leaves clues. And that combination of having a dream board or goals on the wall that you see every day and breaking it down into action items and executing on those action items consistently over time, that's a formula. Like that's the formula for success. So it's been tried and true, and it's cliche or silly as it might be, it's what works. So it's always a great reminder to hear that. And I like your strategy of, you know, spending just a couple minutes. What do I need to do today? Like, what do I really need to do today? And what's going to move the needle forward? And spending the time to write it down. I'm curious if you write it on actual paper and pen.
So I think I have some ink on my
you do.
That question. I love writing it by hand just because it's just how I am. I mean, I have, you know, Google Keep. I have 100 things in there, but I literally I like writing it out, and something about crossing it off. And even my fiance is the same way. I mean, she's at a big, like one of the big law firms, like prestigious, absolute animal. Like, I don't know how to describe her. She's just the Energizer bunny, doesn't stop, but she writes stuff out by hand. She's the same as me. And we always laugh. Like, there's something about crossing it off that just makes you feel good. And that's just, it's something about crossing it off. And I don't know what it is, but when the ink starts flowing and your hand starts to shape the letters and you write out what's in your mind onto paper, there's something that happens. I don't know what it is. It's like a commitment to yourself, or, you know, it's almost like there's a saying, you can't write something that's not true. Like your hand just like, it will write what's true. And so it's like, once you write it and you see it and you did that, and then you get to cross it off and accomplish it, it shows progress, you know. And Tony Robbins talks about how like progress is the key to happiness. And so it's like boom, 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 boom. I don't know. There's something about it. And that's why I asked that follow-up question about writing it down, because I have Evernote, I have Apple Notes, I have Google Docs, I have so many things that I can neatly file away all my to-dos. I have a CRM that'll send me notifications, but there's something about just putting pen to paper. I don't know what it is. I'll never let that sticky note down. It'll be in my pocket. I'll bring it home. Not two more. Like, this thing's stuck to my phone. I got to get it in the trash. Like, that's just how I am. Yeah, for sure. I love that. Yeah. So with the industry today, where do you think things are going? I mean, from an investment standpoint, you kind of want there to be a recession, right? You kind of like, you feel for the people that were over leveraged and lost things, but at the same time, you're like, okay, that's opportunity. And, you know, we have cash on the sidelines waiting to maximize, and, you know, we can help you out of this deal, whatever. So from that standpoint, with all the stimulus that was released in the last year or two that's starting to kind of dry up, with all the people that were on unemployment that, you know, have to go back to work at some point, like, what do you think is the short-term economic outlook, like 2 to 5 years? No one has a crystal ball. I'm not going to quote you on this, but what's your feeling? Yeah, so it's definitely interesting. And I love researching and talking about that topic. And, you know, just with all the levers that go into it, I mean, interest rates, if those go up, you know, every 1% interest rates go up, it squashes, you know, purchasing power by 10%. So there's one metric if we're just talking about prices. we obviously have a storm cloud heading our way from all these foreclosures that haven't even started yet. People are in forbearance and all those sort of things in, just the regular mortgage market. So I don't think in 1 year we're going to be, at 10 auctions a day, but I think in the 3 to 5 year when, we're going to go through another election, we're going to have interest rates are going to have to move at some point. Inventory is the only thing that, like, of the historic indicators, I don't see more inventory coming on. And I'm just maybe in a tunnel vision of our local market, but I'm in the process of, I would like to build a house for myself. And it's like there's limited options in land. And then even in multifamily and stuff that's zoned accordingly, it's even less. So I would say things have to come down if we're just going by history, but when and how and what triggers it, I feel like might be a little too green to answer that, but I don't know.
Hey, great answer. And no one truly knows, but I think that was very insightful. And you mentioned a buzzword that perked my ears up, multifamily. That's my world. I'm in the commercial multifamily world. And I believe that it's going to be the highest and best used from a zoning perspective for many existing buildings over the next 5-10 years to be converted into multifamily, because we need affordable housing. And we're 7 million units underbuilt, and materials are 3 times as much. And like, for so many reasons, the highest and best use is going to be multifamily. And so from a acquisition standpoint, renovating office buildings that are empty now from COVID, and so many opportunities that are coming, I feel like that's a huge opportunity over the next 5 to 10 years. And so that's why I'm personally in it. I love the multifamily multiplier effect from an investor standpoint as well. You do carpets and paint on 1 unit, you bump the rents a little bit. You do carpets and paint on 100 units and you bump the rents a little bit. It multiplies, right? So I'm very fascinated with that whole aspect of real estate. But back on track with you, do you do any multifamily?
Yeah, so I've owned a couple units before I'd met my business partner. I think I had 3 2-families, and then he had a portfolio himself. And then pretty much our biggest thing has been like burring. So we have very few buy and hold units that we've acquired. Everything that we do have has been completely gone through. And one of our main things is net cash flow trumps unit count. So all the books and, a lot of people have different strategies for, wanting all these units and, profit per door. I've seen, $100 to $250 is, a good target, and, cap rates and all that. And I just disagree with that because of like our experience. And right now, we're kind of, in a pro forma sense, I had done some consulting before I even really got to this point, looking at people's numbers. And when you factor in higher touch properties with vacancy, CapEx, maintenance, property management, that's essentially your profit. So we've taken a new approach where every single thing that we're buying, we're netting 500 to 650 net after everything per unit or per door. And that's allowed us, for every 10 BRRRR units we have, we're cash flowing the same as 40 to 50 with all the overhead expenses, of a higher touch unit in our market. So that's been huge for us too, just because we're not betting on appreciation. We think, everything we buy, I'm thinking is going to go down. Our PFSs are going to go down. We're going to be sad. But at the end of the day, our cash flow, that's what we're focused on, and debt coverage ratio. So we have huge cash flow, huge reserves on the DCR metric. And that's kind of our plan to weather through the next 2 to 5 years of uncertainty, because we only care about cash flow.
That was gold. I've talked to an investor in San Diego who's very savvy, and he mentioned the classic $100 or $200 per door. Nowadays, he looks for $600 per door. And you mentioned that same thing. I love the simplicity as well of just looking at the net income per door over, all the other metrics. It's that's what really matters, and not betting on appreciation. Also super key. So you dropped some gold there for my listeners. Rewind, go listen to that 2 or 3 more times, because he's been doing this every day. If you're in the real estate sales side and you're not as familiar with the investment side, or you're an early investor, you have 1 unit, go back and listen to what he just said. That's so key. So really appreciate you dropping that knowledge. You mentioned reading a lot of books, doing a lot of research. So let us know, what are 1 to 3 books that have greatly influenced your real estate investment career?
there's all the cliches, right? Rich dad, poor dad, all the bigger pockets books. Those are all great. But I think the most underrated one is never split the difference, because that has to do with, negotiating and getting a good deal for yourself. And that has never been more important than right now, because one thing I notice, you could read 10 books on, the power of multifamily wealth and cash flow and appreciation and how to flip and how to deal with tenants. But the one book that will get you to even that step is the negotiation and closing the deal. And no one's really talking about that. And even myself, I was overeducated and not taking action and running numbers. And, I was on the sidelines for a year and a half, didn't buy a property. And I was just like, everything I looked at, I look back, I'm like, man, I could have made so much money if I had stopped listening to people and just did it. So never split the difference, learning how to negotiate, learning how to listen to people. We're going direct to seller now on almost every deal. And distressed sellers, on the single family side of things are, you're not dealing with, me or you, a sophisticated investor, someone who's just like talking about the numbers. There's a whole story. Their house is condemned. Their house is in bad shape. They went through a divorce, they lost their job. Like, you need to listen to people, have empathy, ask how you can help them, and understand that, especially if you're a younger person and these people are older, like, it is an emotionally hard thing for them to stomach that you're going to buy their house with cash and, you're 28 and they're 45. So like, that book, Never Split the Difference, is a great way to learn how to listen to people and, I don't want to say manipulate, but just understand the psychology and, let them feel like they're in control. And like, all those little things, we've implemented those little strategies, and it's changed everything, for negotiating. And we've actually been getting deals not as the highest bid, which is a crazy concept. So, those little details and building rapport and having a reputable brand and having empathy will 10x your success rate versus just going by like numbers and being binary.
Yeah, great point. Chris Voss is the author of that, right? Never Split the Difference.
Yep.
Yeah, he's a FBI hostage negotiator.
Yeah.
So what a cool background to write something on persuasion. And
persuasion, that's the word. So that was what I was trying to say.
And manipulation is not all bad. A chiropractor manipulates your body to get it back into alignment. If this person that you're talking to has a story that they need help to write the ending, and you can help them, and you truly have the best interest in mind, how is that bad to help them get over certain fears that are irrelevant, or certain worries, or certain things they don't know, right? You can help to educate them and use language and use emotional levers to get them to make the right choice for them. And of course, at the end of the day, you're picking up the property and profiting from it. But if that begins a chapter in their life, I always feel great about that, right? I don't feel bad about it for a second, because I know that I'm acting in ethics and it's okay. And I like how you kind of skirted around the word manipulation, and I feel like it does have a negative connotation, but I'm here to say it's not all bad, right?
Understood. Yeah. And that's, at the end of the day, we are helping people, and ethics is, we always say pride, integrity, and ethics in our office is like huge. And I can safely say every deal we've done, the best we could on it, helped people. And if there's a situation where there's a better avenue, we do it all the time. Like, we could buy the house, or, hey, maybe we could just, run it through our brokerage and list it retail and get you a little more money. And those key principles for us being young, trying to penetrate a saturated market that has, a lot of people with more tenure than us, like, those are the little things that we're hoping to compound. So, an extra 5 or 10 grand on a wholesaler like purchase versus, running it through the brokerage. Like, if we could actually change someone's life and really help them, the positive reviews are, one thing that come in, but also we actually did the right thing, and it makes us feel good and inspires us to keep going, because, these distressed or motivated sellers, whether it be single family or multifamily, are almost always in an unfortunate situation, and helping them is the right thing to do. And, there's a lot of people that are not doing that. And that's one key thing. Like, we're not wholesalers. Like, we do wholesale property, but if we put a property under contract, we will close.
Right.
We even had a situation where we thought we were going to lose money, but the person that we made that promise to already got a moving truck, already got another place. And we just thought, can we imagine derailing this person's life after being in a horrible situation because we couldn't move a contract or, numbers change. And we ended up just closing on it. And I think that was, a little bit of good karma because we ended up coming out of the deal okay. And even if we were harmed, I mean, we're winning on so many deals that it would just be an expense at that point. So that's kind of where we're at.
And at the end of the day, real estate is a relatively safe investment. I mean, if anything, you have the land. I mean, even if the house burns down without any insurance on it yet, heaven forbid, right? You have the land, which is the real thing that's appreciating while the structure is depreciating. So because it's a hard asset, I think that was 100% the right choice. And as you mentioned, it created goodwill. So it's easy to see your success today and think, he did it easily. It was a straight line shot from being an MBA and engineer to a successful real estate investor. Just no mistakes. But I'm curious about any failures that you had along the way, which set you up for later success. Do you have a favorite failure of yours?
Yes, I don't have a failure that cost me like a ton of money, like, did a deal and lost cash on it. But where I did fail was I failed to listen to my gut and take action and I apologize for that noise. Our office is next to a train track and the morning.
That's all right.
But the biggest thing that cost me was really listening to the wrong people, not listening to my gut, and then essentially being on the sidelines for closer to 2 years while an amazing amount of deals were getting passed around. I mean, this is 4 years ago now, and just the deals that I walked on, the appreciation alone, which we don't buy for, but is just something to measure. I would say those were some of my biggest losses. And it's amazing after getting the paradigm shift and listening to the right people, what we're able to focus on and do.
Great point. Trust your gut. Take some chances. Go for it, right? You talk about saying no to deals early because you have a few decimal points.
Yeah, I have PTSD from those. I have
PTSD from
yeah. Put it in, and all I did basically, was Excel. So I used to, I had a spreadsheet that would like pretty much light up green if it was a buy and, go red and bad if it was not a buy, and just cracking up at some of the stuff I walked on. And when you look at it, half the time now, like, in our like certain market, if we're looking at like a 2 to 4 family, like I can get it done on my iPhone and, just run some quick numbers and crush a percentage and say, this is a great deal. And, now we've transitioned to where everything we buy, there has to be a value add, either the leasing or the CapEx portion, because that's everything we're buying is undervalued. And that's one of the first things that you would ask me to for like people that are like trying to start that plan. And we talked about leveraging resources and stuff. Getting yourself marketable is one thing, but, going to these people, whether it's, your uncle, your friend's dad, or, someone you just met or someone who has money, it's like you fund one of these deals, we're always buying undervalued. So that means we could literally turn around and put a for sale sign on it and hopefully get, 20 or 30% on the purchase price there. And 2, it's secured by personal guarantees and first position loans. So obviously start small. If it's just like a small burr or a flip, it is kind of an easy sale pitch. Once you get over the first one to someone, it's like there's no stock that you can put money on where you're undervalued by 20 or 30% on day one. And like you said, like there's land there. Like there's always going to be some value, even if the place burns to the ground the next day. So, explaining to them that we're getting an insurance binder with you as first position lien holder. You actually are getting a lien. Here's my personal financial statement, do what you will with it. Here's my credit score. We're going to personally guarantee that. And then, by the way, here's the deal, which all that other stuff is great, but just the deal alone should sell the lender on it by saying, hey, we're getting this for 80 grand. It's worth 110 on the market as it sits. We're going to add 40 grand and then we're going to profit 50 grand. It's like, you have money getting less than 1% in your savings account and you're worried about this deal when this deal is worth 30% more on day one. So just learning what's important to people, and if you're trying to raise money has been successful for us. And, the first one was hard. And now we have multiple private money lenders with, I would say, a line of credit close to the $2 million mark right now before we even touch our own capital or like just bank lines of credit. So that's happened pretty quickly. And at first we were always like, how are we going to get the money? And now the mindset is, how are we going to get the deal? Because we can always get the money if the deal's good.
That's right. Everyone's looking for the deal. And that's what I specialize in. So it's been an interesting journey, just sourcing deals and, mastering lead generation over the last 4 years, and then getting into sales and investing myself. And I've just learned that the construction crews will arrive, the capital will arrive, everything will align around the deal.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
I would love to hear from you a little bit on that. What sounds like we're doing the same thing. Like our main goal of everything we're doing globally is getting the cash flow, getting the units, right? And how we get there is flipping houses, wholesaling, commissions through the brokerage, sales commissions that we do ourselves, and all that ammo we plow back into multifamily. So I would love to hear from you how you guys are successful sourcing deals. And I would obviously assume it's all direct to seller because that's where you get the best deals. And, what have you learned from doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. And are we talking multifamily 5 units and up, or like 2 to 4? Like what?
I'd say 2 to 4. I mean, just to keep it simple, that's a big range.
Yeah, absolutely. So for 2 to 4, I mean, there's a couple different ways to go about it. Mailers are tried and true. Using title or data and cold calling the title, in information. Doing the reverse lookup route. At the end of the day, there's so many ways to get the contact information, but then you have to take action on it. And when you do take action on it, what are you saying in that phone call? What are you saying in that mailer? And that comes back to ethics and persuasion. Right. It's like most people are firing from the hip, I can make you an offer. And like they have no idea what the property looks like or this and that. And that's a surefire way to lose, because either you're going to make an offer and they'll accept it and you realize you overpaid, or you're going to just have a lot of people hang up on you and ignore your mailers. So I think the best way to do it is to go back to the concept of persuasion and empathy and really just say, hey, I don't know if I can help you. My purpose for this call is just to learn about you, hear your story, and see if, based on my experience in my network, this could be something that I could help you with. So would that be okay with you? Is it okay if I get a couple of answers to some questions? And just coming from an authentic approach, then you can have a real conversation with a real human being.
Right. Yeah.
And it kind of like drops that guard, the seller guard. Of like, who are you? Why are you calling? Right? Hang up. So, we do various different, like we have, of course, digital lead generation, copywriting. That's my real specialty outside of direct sales and in-person sales.
Yeah.
But then we have, call center type leads where they'll do the first call and then tee it up to the closer, and they'll call like 4,000 dials a month to or to home seller lists, potential home seller lists. And then, we have mailers and all kinds of stuff. So as far as sourcing those types of deals, it's kind of a combination of everything in my experience. And really the not the scripting, but like the framework of the conversation is the biggest and most important part.
Yeah. And that's great advice. And that's definitely something we've been running into too, because just use mailers, for example. That's like the kind of easiest thing that you can do without talking to someone and pump it out. And we've actually kind of dialed back on that because every single time there's a stack of 10, every single person's there, and half of them aren't even local people, just plowing mailers out. And how do you actually be authentic and, lower people's guard and have a real conversation and actually, source their motivation? And, it's now, not that we've been in this for a while, but it feels that this is a lot harder than it used to or needs to be. And that just means that we have to sharpen the pencil and, have our in order, have everything, all those little details align, have confidence, have a clear message, and, move methodically, because it's just at any moment, like so much can go wrong getting a deal. What we have to do to even get on the phone or email or text with the seller and then get to an appointment and get to a number and hope that the deal doesn't get derailed by friends, family, real estate agents, attorneys. There's just like all the levers we feel are like in the wrong direction. And the only way to persevere that is just literally ground up ethics, brand integrity, and being empathetic and genuine. And, those little competitive advantages have been enough to, get deals done.
Amen to that. And one thing that I thought of, which I also want to mention, is that if we're going direct to seller, which in my opinion is the best way to go, and seems like you agree, especially for like the single family stuff, a avoid foreclosure ebook as a free lead magnet to just get a warm lead to give their information. And then they're not going to read the ebook. Like they'll download it, it'll go to their email and they'll never read it. But you get their phone number. It's kind of a hand raise. And if you have some good copywriting that ties into some pain points and creates urgency, saying you have options, but every day that goes by, you lose some options. So make sure to reach out now, because if you want to avoid foreclosure fast, here's 6 ways to do it. Download this today. And people flood in. We get like $10, $15 distressed seller leads from like Facebook and Instagram. And then we can just have an agent or investor follow up with phone calls, have a good script, have a good email and text sequence in place. And that's a great way to go direct seller as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So with that, we have a couple minutes left here. Is there anything that I should have asked you, or anything that you'd like to expand upon from earlier?
I mean, the main things we hit, obviously my message and I guess my motive for getting on a podcast now, which I feel originally was premature, but what I wanted to do is just kind of dive in and be a resource for, people that are just, starting out. And, I'm still within the 1 year mark of shaking my W-2 job. I held on to it, remotely for a year, which was basically me working full time and then having this other obligation. But it is like, it just seemed like an impossible thing to do, especially, I was making well into the 6 figures, wicked flexible schedule, kind of living the dream, and was unhappy. So, just wanted to be a motivator for anyone. Like, I have a duplex, like how do I actually get, 10 of them and replace my income and everything? And I think we kind of talked about all that. And now it's every day I wake up just with a clear head. I'm not feeling guilty that I have other obligations or another job or anything like that. And it is actually incredible what you can accomplish when you're fully focused. So, kind of just goes into everything we're saying, where take action, be precise, be persistent, have a plan, and just see the plan through. And, for me personally, I've never felt better and more motivated and focused in my life than when every Friday that check stopped hitting and, I knew I was on a mission. So that's kind of why I'm here and what I'm trying to do. I would have loved to hear from more people like me when I was like getting ready to make that leap, because it always feels like, this person has 100 million in sales, or this guy has 1,000 units. And I'm like, I want to be there, but how do I even get like to those first like little action items? So that's what I was looking to accomplish and give back.
Awesome. And you definitely have. You dropped some extremely valuable insight today, and I really appreciate it. So we have, my last question, I guess, is how can listeners contact you?
A couple ways. So, directly, I'm big on email and prefer email. So my email is dom, DOM, at Naples Group, NAPLES-group.com. And then if you look up any of the Naples branding, so Naples Home Buyers or Naples Realty Group, all of our social media routes basically to one of our assistants who would get someone, a lead or an interested party in contact with us pretty quick.
Awesome. Dom Santaniello, real estate investor, West Massachusetts, and also has a brokerage, doing some awesome things out there. So reach out to him if you want to refer a deal or interested in joining the brokerage or interested in learning more. Seems like an open book, and I really appreciate you sharing what you shared today.
Likewise, I couldn't be happier to be on here, and apologize for some of the hiccups along the way with the noise, but I hope there was some good content for everyone.
Absolutely. Yeah, not a problem. I'm sure they won't even notice. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening. If you want to accomplish your real estate goals, then I highly suggest downloading my free Ultimate Real Estate Goal Setting Framework. The link is in the description of the show. and it will help you break down your annual income goal into the amount of phone calls, appointments, or open houses you need in order to achieve that goal. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.